Alright, so middle and late childhood you go from 14,000 words to 40,000 words by the age of 11. Children begin to organize their mental vocabulary in new ways during middle and late childhood. They increasingly use language to talk about things that are not physically present, and they learn about the alphabet and how it works, and obviously advances in vocabulary and grammar are going to take place. This is accompanied by what they call metalinguistic awareness. This is a knowledge about the language, kind of like from above. We've talked about meta things before. It allows children to think about their language, understand what words are, and even define them. So by thinking about words they are able to understand and apply the language even better, and this is metalinguistic awareness. They also learn more about pragmatics that we talked about in the last couple of videos on reading in middle and late childhood. With reading, vocab is definitely going to help here. Kids that begin elementary school with a small vocabulary are at risk, so vocabulary at 19 months is actually predicts reading comprehension at 12 years of age. So it's super important to again expose your kids to the language, read them stories, have them discuss the stories with you, and it will benefit them long term. Figure 8 gives you an example of kind of what we're talking about here, the relation of reading achievement to number of pages read daily. Obviously this makes sense. Per day, you know, if they're reading less pages they are going to read less well than the people that are reading numerous pages per day. There are couple of approaches to teaching reading. Phonics approach is reading instruction that teaches the basic rules, translating written symbols into sounds. Basically, what do these letters sound like? They use simple materials for this, and kids have to learn the phonemes of the alphabet letters before they're given words to read, so they have learned all the bars, pause, all that stuff before they even are given any words. The other approach is the whole language approach, which tries to parallel children's natural language learning. They're taught to recognize entire words and sentences and to use the context to guess the meaning of the words. They are given entire stories, not just a few letters. They're also reading within context and trying to figure out what things are by the surrounding words. Children benefit from both approaches, but more so at different developmental stages. So obviously the phonics approach is going to be more useful for a younger kid, and the whole language approach is going to be better for an older kid. Becoming so, as an example, drawing a line in the sand. That doesn't mean you're physically drawing a line in the sand. What that means is you're indicating that you are at a non-negotiable position here. You've drawn a line in the sand. That's a metaphor. They also become better able to understand and use satire, which is going to like things like irony, derision, and then finally young adolescents often speak with a dialect with their peers, which is going to be characterized by be better for an older kid. Becoming a good reader includes reading fluently, so being able to read almost automatically without having to think about what each word means or each letter. I can't imagine if you have to think about which letter in a word before you can even read anything. That would be very tiresome. And so when we read as adults, we're able to just look at the word and automatically know what it means, and that is being fluent with your reading. With writing in early childhood, so the motor skills they progress. You know, when they first start off they use a pencil like this, and then they eventually get this type of a grip there with pencil, and they begin write. They might invent spellings based off the sounds of what they hear. It's not that big of a deal. It doesn't like imply some type of learning disability. Not just all kids do this to a certain extent. Writing the skills develop as language and cognitive skills develop, and writing takes practice. So again, it's kind of like the reading. You would like them to practice writing as well. With the writing, it kind of relates back to the executive function, self-regulation. This idea of monitoring one's own writing progress is especially important, so metacognitive strategies that are linked to this. So when they're writing they need to be able to tell, oh, I made mistake, I need to fix this. If they're not doing that, they're not using those meditative metacognitive type strategies. Alright, so it's middle and late childhood. We'll talk a little bit about adolescence now. They develop more like subtle abilities with words, and what they talk about is metaphors, satire, dialect. So they understand metaphors. They make strides in that anyways, which an implied comparison that between two things that are not exactly the same.